Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Very good morning, both of you. Good morning. I think we can give it a start, guys. But the flow of the students will disturb. So just give me a minute or two. Let me just in the students. Let me admit them. Then, without a disturbance, we can move ahead. Just a minute or two more, please. Thank you. Okay, everyone, then. So let's give it a start. Think we've waited enough. So, before I just have a word about all this, which was supposed to, which was supposed to started last week itself. Okay. The question is, as usually, please just pay attention, everybody. Why do you think people undertake adventurous expeditions, even though it involves a lot of risk? Let me repeat the question. Why do you think people undertake adventurous expeditions in spite of the risks involved in it? Why do you think people will undertake those adventurous expeditions? Yes, Parvati, start it off, please.
So I think because many people like the adrenaline rush that they get when they're doing adventures and they find it very interesting. So they
Mm-hmm.
do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay. So
They get satisfaction when they complete some adventurous activity.
maybe a kind of feeling of achievement, you mean, Mohit?
Yes, sir.
That's great. Yes, what else? Why do you think people undertake adventurous expeditions, even though it involves a lot of risk? It can be
Sir, they want to
upper mountain.
experience.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. They want to experience what?
They want to experience all those adventures
Mm-hmm.
and risks they took
Mm-hmm. They
in
want to
life.
feel it. Probably we can just equate the thoughts with Paradis, with that of Paradis, like thrilling kind of feeling of thrilling. They want to feel, and that those deadly adventures or expeditions, maybe on unknown places or unexplored places in dangerous circumstances. Probably they think that they want to take that thrill, that kind of thrill that they want to feel, and they also take that they want to explore something that was not explored yet. So some people might be very determined in that aspect. They want to be very special, so they may take these kind of risks. It can be about climbing a deadly mountain, very rough, fatal mountain, or having a wires on a rough, having a wires in rough weather on the sea or ocean. Maybe exploring a thick forest which was unexplored earlier, or exploring at the bottom of the sea which was unexplored earlier. So these kind of adventurous expeditions, even though they involve a lot of risks to the lives of those who explore that, the people may want some thrill, may want something to achieve which had not been achieved by anybody in the world. So something like this, they want to be unique, special, for various reasons as such. They do like that, right? Do you all agree?
Yes, sir.
So this is the key point to this lesson, please. This is the key point to this lesson. Please understand that one. We are not afraid to die if we can all be together. See, the title of the lesson is lengthier. Make sure that it should be written correctly. See, this is not in correct form, okay? And let me just correct that form. Deliberately, we have put the wrong title here. And you know how it should be? It should be like this. If we can all be together. Now let me just, okay, it's not getting highlighted. Okay, I'll do one thing. Let me just stop presenting it and start presenting the whole screen so that I can show the other one where we can see the right title. Please just acknowledge the laptop screen. Can you all see that?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
So this is how it should be. We are not. Yeah, thank you. There is a shortened form. Instead of we are not, like you see here, it should be like this. We are not. Shortened form. Not afraid to die if we can all be together. So you students may just tend to make a kind of mistake here. So deliberately, it was shown like that. We are not actually WEARE, but WE apostrophe RE. It is how it should be and it must be. So don't just change the titles. We don't have the rights. The rights are reserved with only the writers. So we don't have any right to change the titles. So please just ensure that it should be in a contracted form like this. WE apostrophe RE. Have you noted? Have you noted, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It must not be written in full form like this. No, don't write like that. And then put 3 dots. And then, of course, write the rest of the title. Okay, this is quite different lesson, an interesting one from the previous ones as well. So this particular chapter revolves around a part of the round the world voyage. Voyage means journey, sea journey, undertaken by the narrator along with his family members in a sailboat. It describes the thrilling experience or journey across the sea and their close encounter with the death. So what does this describe? This describes both a thrilling journey and a close encounter with death during their voyage. You should not call that journey voyage. See, space journey and sea journey ought to be known as voyages. Okay, recently some of the billionaires just went to space. Okay, Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, these guys. So they made voyages that they are not called as sea journeys. Sorry, journeys. When a journey to the space or on the sea or ocean ought to be is to be referred as voyage. Okay. The other things like train journey, bird journey, they're all referred to as journeys only. Okay. So this particular chapter revolves around the part of the round the world voyage undertaken by the narrator, a 37-year-old businessman. Okay. No name has been given to the narrator, simply the narrator has been used. Okay. See here, that guy takes round the world voyage. Like you see it here, he just circles the world, the whole world. Okay. On his boat, sailboat. Okay. That means not a boat or a ship with mechanical equipment, but can sail through the, just like you see it here, with these cloths and masts, all that. It's called a sailboat. Okay. It's not a mechanical boat. And on this boat, the narrator, the 37-year-old man, along with his family, his wife and his 2 children, makes a voyage, round the world trip, after being inspired by Captain James Cook's voyages. Captain James Cook is best known for his world voyages by the ship 3 times. 3 times he rounded the world, he circled the world. And those 3 times the sea journeys are like this. I mean, voyages are shown like this. And during those voyages, in the so-called not so developed world, technologically and scientifically, there were many deaths on the sea, and those deaths were spotted with the dashes as well, like you see here. So he just deaths happened, and this is the journey, dashes, and the rest of the journey is successfully made. So he took inspiration from one Mr. Captain James Cook, who did round the world voyages 3 times and finally died, of course, during the voyages only. And from here to here, that was his deadly journey. And getting inspired from his voyages, he too wanted to make a voyage in order to feel the thrill, in order to explore the unexplored, in order to, in fact, achieve something that was not achieved by somebody else earlier. Okay. But he did it along with his family. His wife, Mary, she is the narrator's wife. She supports her husband every time and improves her sea skills, the skills required on the sea. And Larry, of course, an American crew who was in support of the family making the voyage, and Herb, a Swiss man who was also a crewman who was there to support their family to make the voyage safely, and Suzanne and Jonathan. These 2 are the children of the narrator. I mean, the narrator's 7-year-old daughter, Suzanne, and the narrator's 6-year-old son, Jonathan. So these are the characters as well. But the whole chapter revolves around the round the world voyage undertaken by the narrator and along with his family in a sailboat, a boat like this. Okay. So you just observe the parts of the boat. This is called mast. This is called mainsail, boom, this lower part of it, cockpit, one part of it, stern, the one extreme end of it, bow, the name to the other extreme end of the boat, rudder, we know what rudder is, and this is called cabin. So please just make a note of the parts of it because we come across many parts of the boat. The side stern is the back side of it. Bow is the front side of it. I mean, front side of the boat, bow. Back side of the boat, stern. Cockpit is the area where people sit to roll the boat with the rudders. And boom is the bottom part of the mainsail. And mast is the long pole stuck in the middle of the boat to have the pieces of clothes in order to catch hold of the current of the wind to sail through. Are we clear with the parts of the boat, which is very much required to understand or best appreciate the lesson? Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's move ahead. So as usually, today in this class, what we try to do is we try to give you some general idea about this one, and then I'll float the detailed explanation of this chapter. Just go through that one with the help of that one. If something is unclear, let us know in the next class. We'll clarify them. And later on, we'll pay attention to the extractor-based and MCQs, and of course, questions as well. Okay, so there are some learning objectives as well. So all that can be had later on. So I will have it. See here, there are two others, as you see. Two others, Gordon Cook and Ellen East. Gordon Cook and Ellen East. So who are they? See, this Gordon Cook is a two-time Canadian Olympic sailor. Who is he? Canadian Olympic sailor. Olympic sailor. He is not a writer basically. Excuse me. He is not a writer basically. He is a two-time Canadian Olympic sailor. He sails for the Royal Canadian Yacht Club, and he is the son of Stephen Cook and Linda Cook. The same Cook we talked about. The captain, this guy about whom we talked. Captain James Cook. Okay, the same guy. So, Cook, in fact, is a graduate of engineering physics program in Queen's University. And in 2009, he partnered up with the West Waikaner sailor Hunter Loudon. And that's, of course, a club, and the two campaigned together for the 2012 Olympic Games held in London. So, I don't know whether he's still alive or not, but he had a great name and fame in that 2012 Olympic Games. Okay. And Ellen East, of course, we can say he is just like him only. I mean, Ellen East also a kind of, sailor, but not a writer basically. We don't have much information about him. So these two guys, in fact, this Ellen East met Gordon Cook, who was a true sailor, then took his experiences about sailing, then wrote this story. And this gives us a kind of feeling that it must be true and genuine. It must be real, but actually it is not a real story. This Ellen East, who is also a sailor and writer, took the help of Gordon Cook, who was, of course, a two-time Canadian Olympic sailor. And after just having his experiences narrated to this Ellen East, he wrote this story. And as he has a major contribution in this, he had made his name as well, Gordon Cook and Ellen East. Are we clear with these writers, with these two writers?
Yes, sir.
Now let's move ahead. So this is the plot. See, in this story, the narrator, as I said earlier, and his family just makes round the world voyage. And they just come across thrilling experiences, and at one part of the time, they encountered death also, and which was very close, very, very close, which was. And how they just faced that one, what kind of experience that they felt over there, and finally what happened is the interesting account of this lesson, which sounds real, but actually not. But actually not. Please understand that one. So it is not a real story. Okay. So I hope the background, introduction, characters, all are clear. Let's begin the story. Shall we?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the first person's account. The narrator narrates his experience in the first person. So this adventurous ordeal that the family has undergone on July 1976. See, these dates will give you the feeling of reality, but it is not. Let me just reiterate. So on July 1976, the narrator set sail from England. He wanted to duplicate the round the world voyage made by James Cook 200 years earlier. So 200 years earlier, this James Cook made voyages 3 times, and he wanted to duplicate the same voyage. Of course, he wanted to feel that experience. This businessman, 37-year-old businessman. So he just made a boat ready. He named the boat as Wave Walker, and he set sail from England to duplicate James Cook's voyage, which was done 200 years earlier. So this time he was just going along with his family. This time means actually James Cook did not do the voyage along with the family, but this guy did it. Now let us just explore what we see in this. Okay. Sometimes it gives you the feeling of the reality, but it is not. Please just have it in your mind. It was July 1976. The narrator and his wife Mary, son Jonathan, daughter Suzanne. Jonathan, the son, 6-year-old. Suzanne, the daughter, 7-year-old. These guys, and the age of the narrator is 37 years. Okay, but we have no idea about the age of his wife. Must be either less than or equal to the age of the narrator. Okay, see, this guy wanted to duplicate the round the world voyage made by Captain James Cook 200 years earlier. For the last 16 years, 16 years, they had spent all their leisure time in sharpening their seafaring skills. This guy and his wife, how to just survive on the sea. They're all alone. In fact, they'll be all alone. Nobody will be there. And there was no technological advancement at that time. It was 1976, not 2016 or 2026. So they were just sharpening their seafaring skills. How to face the weather, how to survive. Don't think that the weather on the sea will be very cool and calm like we have it on the land. No, it will be very rough. And all of a sudden, there will be tempests, there will be turmoils, whirlpools, and of course, there will be a huge disturbance over the sea all of a sudden. Cyclones, whatnot, many dangers would be there. And the rough weather will make you feel sick. And usually, if you spend 1 or 2 hours at least, you will get seasick. So they were just sharpening their seafaring skills for the past 16 years. And they were now ready to set sail. Their boat, Wave Walker, had been professionally built. As you see, it had been tested in the roughest weather for months and months together. See, it's not that we can have, a different car, or we can just have a mechanic to get it repaired in the mid-sea. It's something, very childish. It's something very pointless. So please understand that one. Okay. So the first leg of the journey, they planned 3 years. and 1,500 kilometer journey they just planned, and that went on very nicely. The first leg of the journey. See, the first leg of the journey took 1,05,000 kilometers journey, sea journey, and it all went well. No issues, nothing. And they took on 2 crewmen as well. One was American, Larry Wiesel. The second one was a Swiss, Herb Siegler. Herb Siegler. American Larry and Swiss Herb. They were to help them to handle one of the roughest seas, the South Indian Ocean. Let me show that to you. The South Indian Ocean. Here. From here to here. This part of this. The South Indian Ocean is the roughest sea. So in order to help this family, the narrator and his family, they hired 2 men from Africa who were there. One was an American who was staying there, and one was a Swiss. American's name was Wiesel and Swiss name was Herb. They hired these 2 guys from Africa after the completion of the first leg of their journey for over 1 lakh kilometers. Because the next part of the journey, the second leg, called the second leg of the journey, was through South Indian Ocean, which was very rough at that time, which was, of course, basically rough. I had numerous experience. I just served in the Maldives, and I know personally how rough it would be. This area where you can see the islands located on the world map. I'm talking about the Maldives, and which was also situated in the South Indian Ocean. Okay. So, are we clear so far, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to follow me? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, fine. So after hiring these 2 guys from Africa, they sailed down the west coast of Africa to Cape Town. And they were heading towards the east. Okay? For the next few weeks, they encountered strong gales. They encountered very strong gales. In fact, very, very strong gales. Gales means strong winds, yeah? And they blew continuously. The size of the waves was really, really alarming. They were very huge and mammoth. Literally. They went up to 15 meters, 1-5, equivalent to a 2-story building, 15 meters high. Just imagine. As high as their main mast. I mean, this one I'm talking about, main mast, stuck in the middle of the boat. So as high as that one, 15 meters high. They were having the tides of 15 meters high, which were as high as their main mast. They celebrated the Christmas in spite of rough weather. That means, what was the date? What might be the date when they celebrated this Christmas? It was
25th December.
exactly 25th of December. So the weather continued to be bad actually even on the New Year's Day. That is 1st of January. And on January 2nd, the waves were really, really, really huge. And endless big waves came rolling towards them. The wind supply screaming. They were making whistles like this. It was so very deadly and so very panic striken. The gales were very strong. The tides were very huge. On January 22nd, not 22nd, 2nd, this was the situation. Now, they had to slow down the boat because they don't have any machinery to slow down or speed it up. They had to catch hold of the winds and they had to sail through. So they had to struggle a lot. In order to slow down the boat, they dropped the storm jib and they tied heavy ropes across the stern. See, this is called jib, this part of it. When there is no piece of cloth called jib, they can't hold of the wind. When they can't hold of the wind, they cannot be influenced much by the speed of the wind. So they dropped down the piece of the cloth called jib and tied it to the bottom of it, the boom. Okay, so they just tied that storm jib with heavy ropes across the stern, the back part of the boat. They attached lifelines, put on oil skins and life jackets because they were sure that the boat will be turned upside down. What was the height of the waves at that time? 15 meters, as high as the main mast. Okay, so they were taking all the precautionary measures. So at that moment, the first sign of disaster came at about 6 p.m. on that day. The wind completely dropped all of a sudden. The sky grew dark. The sky became very dark. And then came a growing roar that changed into a thunder. A tremendous explosion took place. See, as you know, before the start of a violent storm, there will be a silence on the sea. And that is what happened over there. At about 6 p.m., the wind completely dropped. The roaring wind, and sky grew darker. Everything became quite tranquil and peaceful. And then all of a sudden came a growing roar that changed the whole scene into a thunder. A tremendous explosion took place. It shook the deck, and actually, that means it was shaking the deck. Deck means what? The upper part of it, as you see here, the upper floor on a ship is called a deck. And that was shaking, in fact, because of the tremendous explosion. A wall of green and white water broke over the ship. So, explosion happened. And see, clear details would be there, and you can feel the thrill if you just go through that on your own. I'm not just sticking to each and every particular because it loses your interest. Instead, I'm just going to focus on only important essentials and core part of the lesson only, not every part of the lesson, because it kills your interest. And I've tried that with the other batches and it was a successful failure. So I just don't want to try that method again. And I'm just trying to give you the general gist of it as far as possible, and including all the important essentials like important dates, times, characters, incidents. So please understand. So with the help of the detailed explanation only, you need to go through that one. And there will be a lot of technical jargon. That means technical vocabulary, which you must learn in order to best appreciate this lesson. So that is the job of you after this class. Please just make a note of that one. Right? Okay, let's move ahead. Are we clear so far, guys? Shall we just move ahead?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then. So after that explosion, the narrator's head crushed into a wheel actually. It got hit with that wheel of that boat. And he was bleeding heavily. He accepted his approaching death. He was losing consciousness as well, but felt quite peaceful. He was not panic stricken because they sharpened their seafaring skills for almost 16 years. They just learned how to, handle the situation in the original scenario. So he had, a lot of preparation where he just sharpened himself with the seafaring skills. So he felt quite peaceful in spite of this deadly injury. His head popped out of the water actually, like that. A few meters away, at that moment, Wave Walker is also about to be capsized. That means upside down. The situation was like that at that moment. Waves were tossing them around. See, just like a rag doll or any kind of ball, if you place it in a bowl or a kind of thing, when you just make an inclination, that ball will roll down from one end to the other. Exactly, tossing. So at that moment, they were tossing around. So try to please just visualize the situation, and then only you can best appreciate the lesson. So they were being tossed around. That wave that had hit the boat, and after that, a tremendous explosion shook the deck completely. Water was poured into the boat, in fact, gushed into the boat, and at that moment, the narrator's head smashed against the steering of the wheel of the boat. And before he knew it, he was thrown into the sea also, sea water. He thought that he was going to die. But suddenly, his head popped out of the water because he was so very stern, so very strong in his willpower that he wanted to survive in spite of this deadly weather, deadly circumstance. Okay? He saw that the boat had almost capsized. That means being sunk under the water. Suddenly, a wave hurled it upright. He hurled it upright. That means, so somehow just took the boat out of the water. And so he got some hope over there. So he just tried, in spite of his deadly injuries, of course, not only on the head, but also on the left ribs. They were cracked when he was hit with the part of the boat. His mouth was filled with blood also. Some teeth were broken as well. Somehow, he managed to find the wheel, lined up the stern for the next wave, and hung on. See, just imagine the situation. He was badly injured. He was thrown into the sea. Even then, his head popped out of the sea and just caught hold of the boat. Managed to come to the steering wheel at the stern. And of course, managed it very well. See, his teeth were broken. His left ribs were broken. His mouth was full of blood and his head was bleeding. All that happened. Now, the narrator knew that the boat was flooding with water because there were huge waves coming up, but he dared not to abandon the wheel to investigate. See, certainly the boat was damaged, but he was not ready to leave the steering wheel to have an investigation because he wanted to catch hold of that. And suddenly at that moment, Mary came. Who is Mary? Who is Mary?
Narrator's wife.
Exactly. So she came and informed him that the boat was sinking as the water was gushing in. He handed the wheel to her and crawled towards the hatch. Hatch. See the lower part of it. Hatch. Try to understand. Many technical words will come. So he just crawled towards the hatch. Larry and Herb. Who are these two guys? Larry, American, Herb, Swiss. These two are crewmen who were there to help the family to make their voyage through the rough sea. What was the rough sea on which they're struggling now? South Indian Ocean. Okay? Right. So he just, these two guys were just helping the boat to come out of the water. They were pumping the whole water like madmen. Simply, when the water was gushing in from the sea, they were just pumping the water out with buckets or some vessels out of the boat. Now just imagine how mad it would be. The wooden beams had broken, the whole starboard side, that means the side of it, starboard side, that means left side of it, got completely damaged, and the sides had bulged inwards. Cloths, crockery, that means kitchenware, charts, tins, toys, all the things that they have on board moved around noiselessly in water. What does that show? Water already entered to a dangerous level. Okay? And the boat had been damaged very badly. But this guy somehow managed to reach the children who were there in the lower part of the boat. Sue. Who is Sue? Suzanne, 7-year-old daughter. Okay? And then Jonathan. In fact, Jonathan was, of course, 6-year-old son. They both were there. So he went to them. Sue had already had a big bump on her head, to which he did not pay much attention, actually. He found a hammer, screws, canvas, so some equipment to rescue themselves. Somehow he managed to stretch the canvas and secure waterproof hatch covers, in fact, across the, damaged holes. So he just wanted to, just like we put something, maybe an M-seal or something of that sort, not to have a leakage, he tried to manage those damaged parts of the board on the starboard side with the canvas, screws, all that. Paying no attention to the injuries happened to his children, especially Sue had a big bump on her head. Okay? Even though he just managed to cover them up, some water continued to come in. But most of it could be prevented from entering the boat because of this repairing. But this was not the end of their troubles. See the main picture. Abhi baki hai. The card, in fact, said that she loved, in fact. Are we able to follow? Is everything clear? We are at the end of the lesson. Are we clear so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now see, these guys encouraged themselves with love and hope by saying that they would be able to survive. When the innocent children asked their parents, his father, in these kind of adverse circumstances, who was also badly injured, in fact, he simply said that they were not afraid to die if they can all be together. So the narrator was filled with optimism. Somehow they had to make it. In fact, there was no choice. They were in the mid-sea and nobody was there to help them except they themselves. So the narrator made several calculations after that also using a spare compass. So the main compass was badly damaged at that time because the other trouble had already happened. See, the hand pumps started jamming, and when they wanted to pump out the water, the hand pumps started jamming. So they had to just do it with their own hands. And electric pumps got short circuited. The water rose threateningly. He found that the two sparing hand pumps had been pulled away by the waves. So the jib, the lifeboats, and the main anchor also. He managed to find another electric pump to drain out of the water. That night was an endless, bitterly cold routine of pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping, steering and steering and steering, and working on the radio to inform the nearby, boats that they are in danger. However, there was no response to their mayday calls. Mayday calls means SOS, emergency. See, they were in the remote corner of the world, and Sue's head was also started becoming worse. Alarmingly, it was swelling. She had to Two black eyes and a deep cut on the arm. Seriously, it was fatal. She didn't tell the narrator, her father, more of her injuries, as she did not want to worry him when he was trying to save them all. See, guys, it may take even 5 more minutes. Please stay back, do not leave. And in the meantime, actually, my attendance extension is not working, so I need to take the snapshots. Till I finish the class, I cannot take the snapshots. Please stay back, do not leave the session. Otherwise, you will be marked as absent only. Please just understand and stay back. It doesn't take more than 5 to maximum 10 minutes. Okay, maximum. So let me just move ahead. Now, the next day, what can it be? The 3rd of January, the pumps had reduced the amount of water on board. Each of them took rest for 2 hours by turns. Now, A took 2 hours rest, then B. So at that time, A comes back to pump out the water because